I've started recording.
Everybody want to review the meetings of our January meeting? Okay. But, I don't have these numbers.
Okay.
Can I call those?
So we're gonna do roll call.
Okay.
Althea Barton, present. Diane Nolan, present. Michelle Rohrbacher, present. Marcus Zook,
Present.
is that the right way to say that?
Zuick.
Zuick, okay. Heather Barker, no. Rebecca Anderson, present, welcome, thank you. Michael Kosky. James O'Rourke. Joe Grant, is she on video? She's usually on video if she's here.
Thank you. Yes, here. And I can't start my video. You'll need to allow me to do that too. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill.
You're welcome. Can you shut my door?
I'll let you know how it goes.
Thank you.
Senator Ward.
She's here.
Okay.
I saw Ruth.
Representative Dry
Right here.
and Representative Petrina, who is sometimes on by video.
Yeah, she was not expecting to.
She was not expected, okay.
All right.
Quorum.
Yeah, 5 members present. Quorum. You'd like to review the minutes of the January 10th meeting?
Yeah.
Anybody have any comments on the minutes from January 10th?
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah.
Mike, we're just looking over the minutes to see if anyone has any more.
Thank you.
Just trying to understand, under the continuing business where we discussed the letter,
Mhm.
it seems to indicate from the minutes that I would have been pulling other educational organizations, and that was not my understanding of the meeting.
Okay, so what my understanding of that was, is the letter as you wrote it was approved. We were interested in, and I forget how I wrote it here, so there was, the prevalence and specific recommendations, so there was, throughout the letter, there were enumerated problems with the CSF class wallet site, its performance, people's experience with it, so I was, I think the hope was that we would get a sense of how many people are having these problems, and if there were specific changes that we wanted to the site or to its operation. that we could make as recommendations, because we were sort of saying what the problems were, but not, what specific features we wanted, or we didn't have numbers for how many people are experiencing those.
Right, I reviewed the video and the way that it's worded in the minutes indicates that I would have been doing polling in other organizations. I'm not a member of those other organizations.
I see.
So that you're talking about the sentence, it was agreed that the letter be sent immediately with polling from the home education organizations to be gathered prior to the next meeting, is that right?
Yes,
Okay, so how would you like that worded?
with other members to poll their organizations.
With each member organization polling their own or
Yes.
something to that effect?
Something to that effect. Sorry, just because I'm not a member of
Sure.
any of the other groups. Well, Granite State I'm a member of, but not, not the Catholic United for.
Any other comments or corrections? We have a motion to accept the minutes with the change indicated to continue in business section.
What would you roll call? Althea Barton,
Yes.
Diane Nolan, yes. Michelle Rohrabacher,
Yes.
Marcus Lewick,
Yes.
the Barker, no, Rebecca Anderson. Oh,
Yes.
Can you
I don't-
vote on a previous, something that occurred in a previous meeting? I don't think,
Yeah.
right? That's my fault. No, I'm just realizing as I say your name, sorry. Michael Cost.
Yes.
Well, it's not here. Jill Grant,
Yes.
Senator Ward.
Can't vote.
Oh, can't vote, okay, sorry, thank you. That is- Not this one.
Minutes are approved then. Appointments and resignations. I understand we have an appointment of Rebecca Anderson representing Pratt Village High School Community. I was also told in email that a Deb Sullivan was expecting to be appointed today. Is that
So that's not ready yet.
okay? So. Deb Sullivan. Do you have any immediate business?
It's Friday afternoon. Gotta be something to do, right?
Updates from Department of Education.
Small report, there wasn't a whole lot on it. Was a slight increase in the percentage of. And we did put a FAQ finally on the website, just as a helpful tool.
That's a good idea.
On section B, you say following the resignation of a member this week.
Yeah, I don't think there are two openings, even if there was a. Who resigned?
It's weird then. Did I get an email?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Well, we had a letter from Lindsay Patterson.
I see.
Resident.
So a letter from her that she resigned? I see.
So I don't keep track of all the names.
So we do have two openings, maybe one opening after. Deb, depending on how that goes. Vote to accept this in the record. Any comments on that Department of Ed report?
I guess my only comment would be, I hope everybody can go through the FAQ and make sure we've got everything in there that you think you need, right? Because it seems like that could be a good resource, so.
It's on the,
Sounds like it's on the website.
Website under resources, and yes, please let me know to add whatever you want, I can just get them to change it and update it. I know the PDF wouldn't work, so. That'd be great.
There's at least one, right?
Any questions on the agenda for this afternoon? And then yield the floor to Commissioner.
My turn. So first of all, I apologize that I was not able to be with you last month. I had wanted to be, for a couple of reasons, but my daughter needed to get back to college, and you guys might remember there were a few weekends with some snowstorms going, and I was trying not to drive to Virginia in 2 feet of snow. I successfully got out of Dodge before the snow came down, and then I got home and fortunately have a good friend who was able to have plowed my driveway out so I could actually get back in when I got home too, which was really nice. And I wanted to come last month, but I'm happy to be here today because I have some concerns about the committee and how it's functioning right now. And I have sent out an email to everybody so you guys know how I feel about this. I'm concerned about the professionalism that's been taking place and just the way that we're treating each other and concerned that we are not focused on mission. And I want to address that, but I'm going to say, I'm going back to your section 3 on the appointment. So I'm not going to appoint anybody else at this point in time. I'm going to put appointments on pause until we figure out where we are, and we can have these meetings that don't result in drama, that result and stay focused on the mission at hand. And it was interesting. I'm glad to see you included 315.09, the Home Education Advisory Council. I actually brought copies of that, which we can pass out, although you all have those already in your packet there about, what it is that the Home Education Advisory Council is supposed to be doing. And it's quite possible that some of the drama is my own fault, because when I read the first question, Home Education Advisory Council shall carry out those duties assigned to it by the commissioner. And since I haven't given you any duties, and maybe you decided to make up your own, I don't know. So want to make sure that we stay on focus. And so, and what I want to address is really kind of the elephant in the room, which is, as I understand the drama, I didn't watch the video, so I don't know everything that happened in the previous meeting. But I did hear from a variety of people and tried to keep up with the emails, that there was concern on the council about a commingling of RSA 193A family activities and RSA 194F family activities. And so what I want to kind of make clear is, in my understanding, so when we got the 194F law passed, we were very deliberate in the legislature to create a separate section of law. Like we didn't take 193A and stick something in there. We basically said, nope, this is a different thing. It's not the same thing. I myself have been very consistent since before the law was passed, after the law was passed. Maybe even. Sorry, Jill, we have to cut you off. Since before the law was passed, you probably remember testifying many times, like that, we in New Hampshire, the compulsory education laws require that students between the ages of 6 and 18 are enrolled in an approved education program in the state of New Hampshire. And if you all want to take on the compulsory education laws, that would be an okay thing for you. But and so those things include, they could be enrolled in a public school, public traditional school or a charter school. They can be enrolled in a non-public school. They can be enrolled as a 193A family, or they can be enrolled as a 194F family. If they are not enrolled at one of those 4 programs, they are truant, and not meeting the compulsory education laws, which is subject to its own set of priorities. So I understand the importance of keeping these entities distinct. To my understanding, the individuals who I have nominated and appointed to this committee are all 193A families, because I do think it is a 193A council. And so I guess I share those 2 things to just say, like, I respect the differences. I do know when we passed the law that there were individuals who did not, who are 193A families who are not in favor of 194F. Because they were concerned about the accretion of government reach into the 194A community. So fully aware of that. In fact, spent many hours with HSLDA, making sure we crafted a law that we thought would respect those differences and keep the boundaries in place. And so I think that that's important. But I then come back to my expectations for the Home Education Advisory Council, which quite frankly has functioned great. I've been here for 8 years. And I thought that it was, it has been functioning well, in the sense that it is helpful for me to get feedback from my 193A families in terms of what's working and what isn't. And then try to work collaboratively with you all to make sure that we are addressing those issues. In the feedback that I got leading up to this meeting, as I was reading the various emails I got, there was an issue that came up that I think is a legitimate issue for the Home Education Advisory Council to be weighing in on. So one of the individuals, and I'm kind of deep diving here a little bit, one of the individuals pointed out that since the passage of 194F, that they perceive that the cost of some of the education program that they've been involved in has gone up because you have dollars chasing, after these things. And so I'm like, well, that might be a legitimate, concern for the Home Education Advisory Council to try and deal with. What I think dealing with it is not going to be I think the dealing with it would be like you guys would come up with some ideas as to how we deal with that. Like, can we work with vendors and say, can we have a discount if we're a 193A family, maybe, I don't know, because these are vendors and, so it's hard to pull apart, so how much of this is just regular inflation that's affected all of us and across the board, and how much of it's because of, some EFA 194F families accessing some programming that historically has only been accessed by the 194F families. And so I don't know the answer to that, but I would imagine that was the one thing that came through in the various emails that I thought was potentially a legitimate, kind of concern that was brought to me. But so as, my advisory council, what has historically happened is you all have advised me about issues that home education 193A families have, had to deal with in the state, right? And whether that is, an incorrect use of DCYF resources by reporting somebody that shouldn't have been reported just because they homeschool their kids doesn't make them, a criminal. To, local districts, not accepting an intent to home educate because they didn't present their curriculum materials or something, or, a student moving into a district and a school district asserting that they somehow had control over that kid because they didn't check in with the district when these are families who had a proper intent to home educate on file with another district, so there was no reason for them to do that, or maybe they had it on file with me. Or the one that I always get, which is, I don't know how we're ever going to get to the point, Mike, about making sure that the schools understand that home education, 193 education, 193A education, home education students are allowed to access programming in our public schools on an equal basis as the other students that are there. That's the number one that I always have to call. And quite frankly, as you guys advise us, 9 times out of 10, I literally can make a phone call and say, that ain't right. Stephen Berwick can make a phone call. That ain't right. they're like, oh, I didn't know, like, and they're still working off of a 2010, you know, copy of the law, and you're like, oh my gosh, you guys update. And so that's really what I want to be focused on. I am hoping that this commission, you know, like this committee has representation. It was interesting because there was a line in one of the emails I got that said it is inappropriate to have organizations and members on the council that represent other pathways. And I was, Mike is a friend of mine, and I was surprised, Mike, you're not supposed to be here, but it turns out statutorily you are supposed to be here. You're supposed to be here, right? Like, because what we really want to do is, if I read the second sentence in kind of this purpose line for the Home Education Council, is the council shall work with home educators and representatives of private and public education. My EFA programs are a public education program to encourage an understanding of home education, right? So this is what you guys are supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be the ambassadors for home education. I'm a believer in home education. I think it is a great option for many, maybe more children. Like that, maybe not everybody, but certainly I think there's more kids who would benefit from that. And so I'm hoping that that is the work that this council will be doing in terms of, you know, carrying that torch forward. The other thing that I think is really important, and historically this council has done a good job, is flagging for me when there are legislative issues that you think I need to be aware of. It's great that we have our legislators and they're good and they come and they're in there advocating, but I also want to, you know, add my voice if there's something out there. You know, if there is, you know, there are legislators who every single session, you guys know who they are, who submit bills and they say the same thing, and then we just duly try to kill them because they're stupid. But you guys got to let us know, like, these are the things, like these, you're keeping an eye on it, you're protecting that. But the given the fact that we're supposed to have other representatives, I think there is some advantage. There's not members that are there are not members of the Home Education Advisory Council that are not 193A families. But if somebody is connected to that community or working with that community, we absolutely want that voice at the table so that we can understand, so that you can communicate, these are the issues for 193A families, these are the things that are important to us, so that it's clear. Or even for those, and you know, maybe even myself included, you know, if we're concerned about an accretion, that these things are going to get overlapped, that somehow like the 194F is going to accrete into the 193A, you know, like it's the job of this council to notify me, say like, here's where I think there's an issue. Can you lean in? Not be creating, you know, discord among, or discourse among, you know, like the members of this council, because you're not happy with their perspective or the way, what they think about it. You know, I mean, so I'll give you an example of that. You know, which I wasn't sure. I went and I read the minutes. So like when you guys first started and you're talking about like the Children's Scholarships website, like if there are problems there, I'm happy to weigh in, but I was like, well, why would we care as the Home Education Advisory Council about the Children's Scholarship Fund website? Other than I was thinking of the 194F conversation that I was going to have here, not the education tax credit families, which may be 193A families, in which case it would be appropriate for you to weigh in on that at that point in time. But if we're concerned, so I would hope that the energy of this council can turn towards, how do we make sure, like rather than, you know, kind of an ad hominem approach, more working with, how can we make sure that it is clear? Because I do want to respect and I want to make sure people that are clear, because I even talk to legislators sometimes and they get these things confused. I want to make sure that it's clear that these are two different educational pathways. You know, so are there things we could put on our website? Are there things that we could ask the Children's Scholarship Fund to put on their website? So people who are signing up for an EFA, you know, like, okay, we just want you to make it clear that this is what you're choosing. It's different, has different accountability requirements, different things you have to do. Don't, you know, like, and just to be clear, like when you're, you know, using the vernacular, you are not a 193A home education in a home education program. You are enrolled in an education freedom account program, right? I mean, so, but I think that would be a much more constructive use of all of your time and effort. And so that would be, you know, if we go back to that line, Home Education Advisory Council shall carry out those duties assigned to it by the commissioner. my duty that I want to assign to you all is there some things that we can work on that help make sure that it's clear, crystal clear might be the right vernacular, that these are two different home, programs, and that we want to make sure that they don't get commingled. And maybe what we do is we do like a PDF of, here's all the 4 ways that you cannot get in trouble with truancy officers, right? Like enroll your kid in a public school, enroll your kid in a non-public school, enroll your kid in this program, or enroll your kid in this program. So it's just like, so maybe there's a way that this group can help us, relative to messaging around that. And again, I haven't been involved, and I realize that I'm kind of shooting from the hip here because having been involved in all of your conversations. Maybe you guys already talked about all these things. Maybe you would want to give me 10 reasons why, well, that's all stupid, Frank, we don't really agree with that or whatever. But these are, for years, Home Education Advisory Council has worked well in terms of advising the commissioner about issues. And I want to continue that strong relationship. I want to make sure that this organization is focused on what I would say are the more present, threats or concerns relative to home education, and keep that as the focus, rather than choosing the low hanging fruit, which is each other, because that doesn't help anybody. So, so those are my thoughts, and I don't know, Chair, if you want to, help put those comments into context or not. So
Sure. Well, I had basically 3 points that I wanted to address today. First of all, there is a conflict of interest between what I would call independent home education and the EFA program that makes it necessary for us to have our own infrastructure, our own conversation. Those who advocate school choice are very enthusiastic about the EFA program right now. They've just extended it. That's great. However, it is long-term a threat to homeschool from a political standpoint. We are bringing in, you're bringing in populations that were not homeschooling previously. You're confusing in the mind of the public what home education is versus something that's funded by the state, monitored by the state. And so it is necessary for us to be obviously a separate body that's focused on home education. There's a separate political issue, and this is my second point. How the law evolves, how the public perception of homeschooling evolves is a political issue. That is not something we can really directly address here at this council. So we're not here to fight that battle. The political landscape is divided. 90% of people who are aware of the issues around school choice fall into 2 camps. They're either in favor of school choice, but do not see any distinction between EFAs and homeschooling, and need to be made aware of that. Think that EFAs are helping homeschooling, if anything. And the other side that is against all school choice categorically. Very few people are tuned into this debate that we have here, this 193A versus 194F. I think even that terminology is bad for us, constantly referencing these chapters in law. The way I see it, independent homeschooling is not something created in law. It's something that's existed since the Stone Age. It's the natural state of man for parents to educate their children. And we don't need any leave of the state for that to exist. The fact that it's acknowledged that we have the right to continue doing that despite, public schools existing and compulsory education laws, that's not central to what we do. And that's not what we want to communicate to the public. It's a political question, and those who are concerned about this, as I am, we have to go out in public and we have to influence the public to understand that there's a distinction between what I would call independent homeschooling and EFA program, or publicly funded private schooling, or whatever you want to call it. It's correct that this body should reject business which relates to EFAs, questions relating to EFAs, complaints relating to EFAs. I don't think that it's correct to month after month bring to this body, which is not a court, not a legislature, and has no power to address anybody's grievances, to bring to this body grievances about this friction between EFAs and and, traditional homeschooling, independent homeschooling. So I'm hoping we can put that to bed. And, obviously, the activists who submit comments are free to continue to submit comments. I just hope that they make the choice to, move on to other things as far as their interaction with this body, because, ultimately we're all appointed by the commissioner. Sorry to see him go. There'll be a new commissioner. Who knows what that person's going to want.
I'll
from
do my
us.
best to make sure it's everybody
Thank you.
favorable.
But it's not in our power to choose who's going to be a member. It's not in our power to, remove members. It's not in our power to set our own mission. And so I would like to stick to the business that we have in our scope in the future.
Can you just, a couple of things, so when you, I don't need, sometimes, and maybe it's just, we have to be very careful about our vernacular, right? So I'm pretty, and this is just my own personal thing, but I'm very adamant. I've always said over the years, I home educated my children. I never said that I homeschooled my kids.
Okay.
And the reason I did is because my objective was to educate my children, not to school them. Because
Right.
I wanted to send them, I'd send them over to Mike if I needed to school them, but I didn't want to school them. I was trying to educate them, right? And so maybe as the home education advisory council, we can work on very specific vernacular that creates some distinctions. Maybe we need something that, if we are home educators, which is in statute, so we own that term in the sense that that's HEAC. Is there a vernacular that we can use, that is not, overly pejorative in some way, but in some sense, it creates a distinction to a family that is, basically, I refer to them as education freedom account students.
Right.
I don't always use, I use 194F just to keep it separate.
It's public, it's
It's
home-based private education. I mean, ultimately.
No, it's a public education program.
Okay, so.
It is a public education. I've written an
Home-based
op-ed about that. It is 100% a public education
And
program.
it's home-based public education. It's funded by the
For
public.
the people who
Based in the
are
home.
trying to.
I would say.
Yeah, okay.
If you get on, if you get on a Zoom call with a tutor all day, or if you buy materials that the state approves, with public money, or if you put together some package of programs that are state approved and state funded, I see that as a home-based public education. That's what I would use. The problem is, that's a whole other group, and we can't twist their arm and make them call themselves.
No,
something
but we
don't
can
like.
be clear among ourselves, because I think
Sure.
sometimes among ourselves we get mixed up. And I know that Michelle wants to weigh in on this, and there's a couple other points that you brought up that I want to weigh in on, but I'll.
Sure.
So part of that, it addresses what Marcus said about the, not having the continual 193A versus 194F discussion. It's not that we don't think somebody that is in favor of 194F shouldn't be at this table. Those representing the
here.
home education community shouldn't be 194F at this table.
So,
You shouldn't be at this table representing 193A with your mind divided with 194F, and that is what is continually brought to us in.
when you say mind divided, that
So,
would,
and-
might exclude me then, because I'm a fan of 193 and
Because
194F.
your seat is at the table as the commissioner.
Right.
Okay, but I am
We have a
also
senator,
divided
we
in your
have
sense.
we have a
Heather
principal,
here,
and we have
Heather
a representative. So we've got people who are non-voting members who are, who represent other.
So what does that mean to have a divided mind? What does that look
So
like?
like Heather has done an excellent job
Okay.
advocating for home education, and that's not her wheelhouse.
Mhm.
Professionally, that's not what she does day to
That's
day.
fine, yeah, but how does somebody, I'm trying to understand, what does somebody look like that is somehow has this divided tension that you're describing? What are their,
With,
are they a 193A family that is a 190, that is in agreement with 194? What does that look, I don't know what that means, because I've only ever appointed people who are 193A families.
right, so to bring out the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
The concerns that were brought about Ms. Pattison
Yeah.
being in the representative position that she was, representing home education. The questions and concerns from the home education community came because she was also a vendor.
Yeah.
For Class Wallet. She
Yeah.
received 194F funds. That's a divided mind.
Well, yes and no. I mean, in that sense, you could say that I have a divided mind because I'm the one who lobbied for and helped get Ruth to pass 194F. So in that sense, I'm divided. In some respects, Mike is the
Yeah.
divided mind. Like he's got it. He
am.
probably even has a more vested interest. Like he's getting money, and every one of you guys who files an intent to homeschool, that's less money that goes to Mike's organization, right, for you, right? So like I guess that what I'm trying to say is like that divided mind. It is possible that there is someone who can't separate those worlds and properly, like I'm a vendor over here, Mike would be a vendor, and also a 193, then that would just be somebody who's not fulfilling their role, because to your point, when someone's sitting at this table, they're representing 193A, that's the purpose here. But it doesn't mean because they have nexus to some other thing that we are saying that they can't come in. I mean, quite frankly, like I've interviewed individuals for participation here. And, so there have been people who've gotten to my office and I'm like, oh, but you don't homeschool your kids. Like, you're not doing this, like, you're not a home educator. And that you're a 194F family, like, so that don't make sense to me. But I've also had individuals who come to me and, they've got 2 kids in the public school and they got 1 kid that they're home educating and another kid in a private school, right? And so you're kind of like, is that a divided mind? Like, I don't know what it is, so I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, I'm not comfortable with a litmus test that, so to speak, if somebody is not fulfilling their role on this board for whatever reason, because they have a conflict of interest, because they never show up, because they're argumentative and a pain in the neck, like I would hope that, somebody on this board, but the chair in particular, would come to me and say like, you know what, we can't have Ruth at the meetings anymore. She's too disruptive and she just can't get the job done, right? Like, so you can tell me that, right? Like, so if we have somebody in here or to extend further your example, and this is hypothetical because I was not involved, I don't know. If you have a member on this board who comes every time and hands out sales material for a program that they're pimping, right? Because I work for a curriculum vendor, right? Like, so if you had some parent who's selling curriculum, they could be a 193A, parent, and they could be here and they could do a really good job. And they don't let their fact that they're a sales rep for, some curriculum every day influence their decision here. So I'm not comfortable with the idea that there's a litmus test there. I think that it is, people can be mature and they can hold both of those roles simultaneously.
So my understanding is in the meeting before I joined, I believe the November meeting, that much of the time was occupied with questions, EFA specifically.
Yeah.
So I think what we can do is we can say that questions related to EFAs are out of order for this committee and.
Right, if somebody says to you like, well, how do you apply on class file? You'd be like, well, that's a different committee, guys. That's not for you, right? Like that would make 100% that would work.
That's something we can absolutely do at this table, right? And should be doing at this table. As far as the case of somebody who's far out of line in how they're conducting themselves on the committee. Again, yeah, that would be something we'd bring up. So if you have a member who's constantly introducing EFA related business or, argumentative or so on.
You could just call me and say like, hey, Marcus would go like, hey, Frank, can you just talk to this member because they keep bringing curricular materials to us and trying to sell us things and we're good. This is not the purpose here. I know you wanted to reflect on that.
Right, sorry. So that was the problem with the September meeting. It was dominated by EFA discussion brought partially by Ms. Pattison to the table.
Great. So then what you should,
That's the divided mind.
So the appropriate resolution of this really would have been, and I guess, and again, good that we're learning this now, would be to just like flag that for me. And then I can have a conversation with somebody who's on the commission, say like, either the chair talks to him first and you say like, hey, this isn't really the place for that. Or if the chair says like, I can't get through, then you can ask me and I can have that conversation and say like this is not the place for the EFA issues.
But Commissioner, several representatives have spoken to you and several constituents in the state of New Hampshire wrote to you with their concerns and addressed specifically the September meeting directly and about how those concerns were being brought to a body that does not deal with them.
So then what I would tell you is it was not clear in those communications to me that, well, I mean, you can shrug and whatever you want to do, Michelle, like I'm just telling you, like in all of those communications, I never understood as Marcus just described it, that somebody was occupying the time of this board with matters that should not properly be before this board. I never had a call from a chair who called me and says like, somebody keeps showing up at the board and bringing matters to this board that don't belong here, whether it is matters of career and technical education or whatever it might be, right? So in all those things, I can tell you that that was not clear. It may have been in there and I just missed it, but I can tell you, I've been clear here that I think it's appropriate if you have matters that are coming before the board, the first role is for the chair to just say like, that's not really appropriate matter for us to discuss. And so I'm okay, you know, like if I get a flurry of emails because somebody said, you know, somebody wanted to come here and talk about, you know, career and technical education that had nothing to do with 193A families, you know, and Marcus said like, look, that's not appropriate. And then people said like, well, we wanted to talk about the career and technical education. I was like, well, that's not a matter that's before your board. So I don't know why you're looking at it.
Well, I can't speak to what happened prior to when I joined in January.
Okay.
It was supposed to be November, but the chair resigned and
Yeah.
there wasn't a quorum.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of drama going on,
And I
right?
did address these things in my interview with you, even,
Okay.
that I said the September meeting was dominated by EFA discussion. Then that, I was pretty clear to you in my interview that that was something that I was prepared to not allow happening.
And you're here, right? And so I get that, right? So I haven't acted contrary to that.
Mhm.
But if it's not being resolved, what we have to be careful of is, like, here's what happened is we created all this drama by individuals, you know, acting outside of kind of a chain of authority, I guess I would describe it, right? In other words, like, those were matters that properly need to be brought up with Marcus. If Marcus wants to,
I
he
was
can.
not the chair at the time.
He was not the chair, or so there was no
There
chair.
wasn't. a chair.
Okay, yeah, so then, and then you should call me like, Frank, I told you to take care of that, how come you haven't taken care of it? And I'll make another call,
I wasn't a
okay?
member yet.
Okay, yeah.
We've had at least 50%.
So maybe there's all this transition wasn't helpful either,
Right, I
right?
think we have 4 new members, down 2 members, two old members are gone, including the old chair, and so. I think the issue of the September meeting can be put to bed at this point, and in the future, if questions brought to the board that relates to EFAs. I have no trouble saying that it's simply out of order, we're not going to address it.
Yeah, that's fine. And then can I just, and I'm gonna push on this a little bit, probably gonna get myself in trouble a little bit, just to, yeah, like, what I wanna be careful of is like, understand what is happening, like the underlying question, because again, you're representatives of home education. You're not, this is not like a fortress that we're building walls, right? We're building bridges, not walls here. You know, the council shall work with home educators and representatives of private and public education to encourage an understanding of home education, right? So if somebody asks an out of order question, you clarifying that for them, like that would be out of order because we're dealing with home education things and this is why it doesn't fit into that. If someone is asking a question, because it is possible that there's this Venn diagram, these things are going to overlap, you're going to have issues that are, well, that could be a home education question, or it could be an EFA question. And so my ask would be that when you reject or accept those questions, it's on the basis of whether or not they apply to home education. And not on the basis of
Whether
whatever
they involve
interest of the
EFAs.
individual,
I see.
like what they're doing on the outside, right? Is this legitimately a home education question? You know, not who brought it, okay? So if Mike brings up a question, says like, if it's Tuesday morning and the cat just threw up, do you have to start school on time? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because that could affect a bunch of different people, right? So that would be my. Is that bad?
No, just an
very
example.
strange
I'm wondering where you're going with it.
Those happen, like.
Totally normal.
Right? Yeah, apparently he's never home educated, so he probably wouldn't
Or he
have.
doesn't have a cat.
Oh,
He
no,
doesn't have a cat, right?
we don't have.
You may
cats.
not have, you may not have, right,
We're
but,
educated.
but those are real questions. You're like, oh my gosh, my whole day is ruined. What am I gonna do here, right? So, that would be my one quest is like, just stay focused, like, we're focused on issues related to the home education of our children. And, you know, and so you get, the chair should be ruling about that's in order, that's not in order, so. And I think then it's good that we have a chair who's, and we have a commission that's able, or a council that's able to do that.
So I'm loving where this conversation is going because I've been on this council for a long time and it was very functional. So I appreciate that you're here with us today. Everybody's here. We actually have more people on the council, which is exciting. Something we could do, Marcus,
Mhm.
is if we have this, you know, here, I actually remember being at that meeting and everybody was kind of like trying to answer questions for people, frantically looking up the other rules and and again, there's the out of order and that also just maybe clarifying, having that other set of rules hear like what their description is, just the basic this. So
You said
that,
like the EFA version of that.
yeah, so that you can, so that it's a gentle way of saying, hey, you know what, let's take a look at this. This is where it, you know, there are places it might overlap, but here it's not, these are very distinctly different. So this is the route you could take.
Call Kate, call somebody else, like that goes through another
Exactly,
council. Yes.
exactly. There's a different person that's your support person for that. And I think if we had that information, that becomes, you know, a much more positive way of interacting with folks. And stopping that conversation, because actually, I think a few of our meetings, good chunks of them had stuff that, and we're not well versed in it.
Yeah, so you guys are trying to make up answers. which
Or
are
trying to
probably
find the
bad
answer for
answers.
someone
Yeah.
because you care about somebody who's asking you a question. It just,
Yeah.
this isn't the right table to be sitting at for that, and here's that resource. So maybe if we just had in our packets, just had a few copies of whatever, so that when we're always here, we have that and can reference it for folks. Here's where you go for that. This is who can help you answer that question. Right? I just think that might help, and it will take away, it in some respects, like, it felt like, you know, we're moving into like personal attacks on people, and everyone, I'm gonna presume everyone had good intentions.
I think everybody does. We all love our kids and we all want
Yes,
kids to be
yeah.
educated. So can I just like, I'm gonna pivot off of this
Yeah,
for a moment if
sure.
I may, which is to come back to that first sentence of what we could do. I do think it's a good idea. I do think it's appropriate for this council to work on, you know, messaging, whether that's on our website, on the Children's
Mhm.
Scholarship Fund's website or wherever, to just make sure we're really clear and distinct about, you know, different education programs, because, you know, in almost the place where then we have a link, and so somebody brings it up, like, okay, here's the link, go check it out, you know, it's like just, they get to go see it on a regular basis, and they don't. So when they're tempted to commingle, like, oh, you don't understand how this works, let me show you how this works, and it's just kind of a straight up, here's an explainer for them, because as we all know, like, many people are not that versed to go into the RSAs and know what 193A versus 194F even mean. You know, that's kind of geek language.
Yeah, I think it's alienating, and it makes it seem to somebody who's not already convinced that that home education is a critical issue, it makes it seem like a trivial concern.
May I add,
Since we were talking about the litmus test that you want to avoid, I just wanted to say, since I was recently had my interview with you, the one question you asked me, which I really appreciated, like, first question right out the gate, are you a 193A unfunded homeschooler?
I
And
don't think I used the unfunded, but yes, okay. That's okay.
and I think if you're going to be appointing new people, like, there would be a couple other questions you could add to that. One would be, do you benefit from the EFAs as a recipient of those funds, even if you don't take them for your
Yeah.
own children? And that would avoid things like finding out someone's a vendor.
So can I say, so if I ask, I think that's a great question, truthfully, and I can ask that question, but then my follow-up question would be, and explore a little bit. Do
Can
you
you
think that you'd be
separate
able to
Separate.
function on this commission or this council,
Mhm.
you know, in your role as a home educating parent,
Mhm.
and not bleed into this, all of the issues associated with your potential conflict of interest?
Well, then that brings me to the third
And-
question.
or the fourth question,
Or,
yeah,
yeah,
we come to the
because
fourth
now
question.
now that the ceiling is going to be lifted and
Well, we don't know, there's still,
Well,
the
but
legislation
you
takes a
could
lot
say-
longer, doesn't it, Ruth? And we're not there yet. You know,
Would
she's
you-
pretty optimistic though, isn't she?
Would-
The ink's
would
still
you
dry on
ever-
yesterday, not even dry on yesterday's.
Yeah.
Right, but you
Vote,
could
yeah.
say, would you plan on switching to EFAs in the future?
Yeah, that's a fair
If
question too.
you're, you know,
Yeah, because if you're gonna
contracted?
be on this council, I would ask that you,
Right,
you know,
but-
if you're gonna become, you know, 194F family, that you really shouldn't be on the council, so you'd be
Right.
willing to step down.
And then maybe that would help you find out whether they are not an EFA family because they can't be, or
That really will
because
separate the wheat from the chaff if everybody
don't
can
want
get
to
it, huh?
be.
Let's see, are you in this for the money or are you in this for your kid? Sorry for saying this. Which I don't think, I think that's a pejorative way of describing it, just to make sure that that's on the record.
may I add something as coming from a perspective of someone from the Non-Public School Advisory Council?
Can you identify yourself?
Yes, Jill Grant. I'm a member of the Home Education Advisory Council through the Non-Public School Advisory Council. So I'm the appointed member from the Non-Public School Advisory Council to the Home Educator Advisory Council. So I'm that liaison.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, so I would appreciate, as we're discussing these conversations, being taught, like having a conversation with the chair of the Home Educator Advisory Council, what their expectations of the non-public schools are so that I can bring that to them, right? So what was confusing for me at my first few meetings with the Home Educator Advisory Council was, what is my role? What do you need me to do? How can I best support you? Because obviously as a non-public school administrator, I am bridging those, right? I have families who come drop in on classes and they are traditional 193A families. And I have families who come and drop in on classes at my school who accept Education Freedom Account funds. So I have both sets of families who are here, and we accept letters of intent and we do portfolio reviews. So we really work to support the home education, both, your traditional 193A. And to be honest, till this conversation, did not really understand the nuanced distinction between those two.
So I got that communication.
Yeah, and I think really that's a valuable thing for me to take to the non-public school advisory council and just talking about those distinctions, and really just being very good at communicating, so that we can communicate that out. So I just would appreciate maybe some kind of, how can I be useful to you? How can the non-public schools advocate for 193A? Because that's really why I'm here, is because I have those families who come to my school and I work with them. And I want to be able to serve that, serve you guys, and being able to move that to the non-public school advisory council as well. So, really just, somebody who can just, and I take stuff from them to you as well. So, maybe a more clear definition of what that role would be, because I mean, I'm not always going to be doing this. So what would that role look like?
I can respond to that, but I think really the council is probably best positioned to respond. It is, the issues that the home education families are having as they engage with your institutions.
Right.
Examples of that might be, like we need more opportunities for part-time enrollment, like our kids who want to take one class or two classes, and maybe there are many non-public schools who say like, nope, you're either fully matriculated or you're not. I may say like, well, no, it might be good if you guys could offer some of this stuff. It might be that you feedback to us as well. You say like, hey, we have, students matriculating from 8th grade to 9th grade coming into our system. We are observing, they're way ahead in math, and these kids in 9th grade are ready for calculus and we're not ready to support them. And so we're going to try and respond to that. Or maybe they're behind in math and they're not ready for the math that we're offering them in 9th grade or in the secondary system. So that's the conversation that we want to have, is as this home education advisory council, who are home education families and representatives of families, they're hearing from their families about their engagements with your institutions. And so to the extent that there is friction, this group is supposed to help kind of smooth out those frictions. And that applies, here as well as in the, the other domains as well. So, I mean, that's really why, Mike and Heather are here as well. So.
Mhm.
Does that help?
Yes, but it does kind of clear up some of the things that, that non-public schools can do to assist, but not necessarily address the issue of there being some kind of a expectation or, so, as somebody accepts the role, what would their role be sitting here? Because clearly, I have families from both, pathways at my school dropping into classes. And so, in that case, but I am in a position to be able to help the 193A families in whatever way I need to. But what does that look like? What are what is the expectation for me?
Again, so the expectation for you is that you're hearing the issues that this council is raising that their families are engaging in and encountering as they try and engage with the non-public institutions in the state. And then you are able to address those. Some of those may be issues that home education families, in this Venn diagram, kind of the overlap kind of an approach. Some of those are going to be issues that are raised out of HEAC that deal with home education families that are engaging your system. And those same issues you may hear those issues from the HEAC and you say like, well, those are issues that the HEAC families are dealing with, but also these 194F families are dealing with too. And so which is kind of a moot point for you, because if you address the issue for everybody that's coming to you that has the issue, then you've taken care of it. So it's okay that the issues are shared, but your role here is to really address the issues that this organization is raising for you. So I'll give you an example of what would not be in bounds, right? So if you have families that are education freedom accounts, and what was the term you used? Like public home-based education families that are accessing your system, and they say to you like, how do we access, the class wallet account? Like that would be something that, this council would not be engaged in, would not be interested in, right? So you may solve that problem for them, but it wouldn't be a problem that this organization here would ever raise to you, because that would not fall into the scope of a home education family, so.
Could I offer, Jill, here's another example, because this actually came up somehow in one of the conversations. There was something about how home education parents, when they were accessing, there's some crossover on some platform, and you spoke very eloquently about it, as did some other parents last month, that as the EFA program has taken off and more students are involved and accessing that, it was a perception on the part of home education parents that they might be being put to the side somewhat, or the time to get things or stuff like that. So I'll give you an example. So you're a non-public institution, right? And let's imagine that public home education families, you have kids there from that side, and then you have EFA families maybe doing some stuff at home, having a tutor, taking a class at your school. That it might be an issue, for example, and the reason why you might be on this board would be helpful is like if suddenly the EFA families had a priority in your school, that would be something that people might bring up, like we would work together to figure out how could we address that.
Yeah, exactly.
How could we address that to make sure that home education families has equal access to the same supports and services that they've already been enjoying for many years? So I think in that regard, like for me, I keep it on the radar for all the superintendents and central office administrators across the state, their obligation and responsibility to home education families. That's my job, or I view that as what my role is for this committee, for this council. So I think you are an important member. And now as things, the landscape is shifting, and of course with change comes, growing pains. So we have to just figure it out and where it plays. But I think that you could see do you see that example?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we certainly treat our homeschool families. It doesn't matter. Really, honestly, to me, hearing this nuance is great, and it's important, I think, for the distinction, because it's important to the community for the distinction. And I'll make sure that I use more of that terminology moving forward. But I think for me, yes, I think advocating, with non-public school, how they can better serve 193A families, through programs and whatever they need, testing, I can share my experience and advocate in that way.
That just reiterates the importance of maybe creating some documentation around the
Yeah.
distinction so that.
Yes. I think it's important. If it's important to the community, then it's important to communicate.
So,
Yeah.
sorry, in speaking to that, distinction between the two, even as Jill's described it, she could have a 193A family and a 194F family come to her school and both pay her through Class Wallet if the 193A
It's a
family
tax credit
participates in
problem.
tax credit scholarship.
Exactly.
So it would be a verbal discussion, which is where we get back to the making those distinctions is something we have worked in the 193A community, and the problems come from the 194F community. There have been infographics made and distributed through Granite State Home Educators and others that very clearly delineate the 4 pathways. And nobody on the 193A pathway is saying, but how come I'm only the 3rd? It's the people on the 4th pathway saying, I do the thing on the 3rd pathway. And that's where we have the problem. So it's not a problem that resides with a resolution within our community. It's
Understand.
outside of us.
So this is why, but if that's the case, that's why I offered, like, maybe what we need to do is this organization needs to take a look at, the Children's Scholarship Fund's website and ask them to make sure that
Yeah.
they're clear about the distinctions that they're doing. Because she does have 2 different, application sites. For the Education Tax Credit Scholarship is different than Education Freedom, different application.
It is a different application, but when you log in as a tax credit scholarship family, which I have the.
You're on the,
experience of.
you're in class
So I
wallet.
know how that works. When I apply annually for the tax credit scholarship, it's a box to check. EFA, tax credit scholarship, that's the only distinction. on the
So then maybe
website.
we need to ask them to
And-
further pull that apart.
But that speaks then further to the letter that was sent to you advising that the 194F families that are applying for that EFA remove themselves from the ability to apply for the tax credit scholarship.
Well, you can, I'm not sure I understood what you just said, because they can apply for both.
Not,
They can stack them.
They can.
Yeah, they're
it's not in
stackable.
the law.
Not,
I think so.
no, not in the statute. There was
Yes.
never a revision to the
Yes,
statute to add EFA.
Scholarship and.
I believe it's stackable, isn't it?
Understand.
I believe they're stackable.
Can somebody point to the statute?
I'd have to go look it up for you.
Got it,
But, okay, if you want to look it up, but I believe that you can stack them.
yes.
But either way, like, so what we're saying is clearly there's confusion. I got legislators and you're thinking one thing and you're in that program. So
Wow.
clearly we have to do a better job on the communication if somehow those are somehow being conflated, so. But I do think they're stackable.
In the statute that describes the tax credit scholarship, it is available to home education and private school.
Yeah.
There was no revision adding EFA.
Yeah.
EFA is public money. It explicitly excludes public school students from receiving it.
Understand?
And you very eloquently said at the very beginning of the meeting, the EFA is public funds,
It is.
public school.
Yeah.
They can't do it.
But that doesn't mean that somebody's not eligible for a tax credit scholarship also.
But it does, because the statute that establishes tax credit scholarship excludes public education.
Exactly, but you could have a student who's receiving an education tax credit scholarship that is going to Trinity,
That's
and
not
so,
public education,
correct.
tax credit scholarship.
Yeah, but it's a non-public.
EFA family cannot participate in a tax credit scholarship because the EFA is public money, public school.
So
But the
I
tax
think
credit
it's not,
scholarship is
it's
not
really a
available.
money
I'll-
question.
I'll go
It's-
take a look at
it's-
the statutes and I can clarify that for you all, but I think you're mistaken.
Yeah, I think her point is if we say that EFAs are public education, then the EFA student is a public school student,
Right,
Mhm.
right? So insofar as that tax credit's not available to
Yeah.
public school students, it shouldn't be available to the EFA family.
yeah, so unless the legislature has written into the law that there's an exception to every law, right? And so if the legislation permits that public school student, just like I have public school students today who get scholarships from, BAE to go to this program or to go to that program, right? So they're public school students that are receiving a private scholarship to do something. So I'm not sure, it's not as clean as we want to think that it is. And I'm happy to go back and take a look at the statute.
But that would have to be affirmatively created in the.
I believe that it may be
Okay.
affirmatively created, so.
My
But we'll go
opinion
back and
is-
take a look at it. I could be wrong.
it's really hard to hear, like online, just sometimes the words, your conversations blend together. Are we talking about people double dipping in EFA and ETC?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, because I think that's an issue.
Yeah.
I do. I think, I do.
Public, you're not non-public.
Yeah, but I do think in the statute that we allowed them to stack it, but we'll go check. it.
Yes, I have families who get both.
Yeah, I mean, there are, and again, just to be clear, like my education tax credit families, I have 37 of them, so.
There's 37 families?
So I have 37 that are in, a public home how do we describe it? Public,
A
home-based public
home-based public education.
Yeah,
Or no, I have 17 are in a home-based public education.
No,
17.
I'm
How do
sorry,
you-
tax scholarship is not public education. Please
Uh,
clarify that.
Okay,
How
I'll
do you-
clarify.
No, so what are you saying?
So you're saying there's
Students that
17
receive
doublets?
Only,
Yeah, potentially. Yeah.
Okay,
How do you distinguish between
Fine.
someone
I'll go back and I'll look at it. I'll go back and I'll look at the law.
I'm just
I-
trying to understand what you said, though. There
So
are
here's what
only
I'm saying.
17 families that participate in the tax credit scholarship in the state of New Hampshire.
Who are
Yeah.
also EFA?
No, so that's what I'm trying to understand.
Me
So,
too.
So I'll go back. I think this is an issue and I'll go back and I'll look up the stacking. I think that your information is incorrect. Not sure who's texting it to you right now,
Nobody's
but.
texting me anything. I'm on the website.
But I'm
trying to
thinking
pull
that
the
it
law
may be
version.
incorrect, and I'll go have our legal counsel look at it. But that's a good question. These are the kinds of things that the Home Education Advisory Council should say, like, this isn't clear. Can you clear it up, Frank? I'm telling you what I think, and I'll take it back to the department and we'll get clarity for you.
So the follow-up on the letter,
I don't know what you're asking.
the letter that we sent, what was the clarity that you can bring to that? Because I referenced RSA 77G1.
So I have nothing to bring for you today, so I'll find out.
So I'll put the EFA,
So,
ETC double
Michelle,
checking
like,
question.
can I just tell you, like, your nonverbals are not very nice. If I were at the September meeting and you were looking at me like that, I would think that that was offensive. So
No,
I'm just telling you,
I emailed you.
I'm
earlier this
here.
week.
trying to help you. Yeah, but I got a lot of things going on this week. I don't know if you noticed that.
I know.
And just because you emailed me earlier this week, I will get to your thing. I've told you I will come back to you. I think you're out of order, not allowing me to come back to you and wanting to become argumentative at this point in time. And that would be what I would tell you.
That's not the case. I'm not trying to be argumentative.
Okay.
I'm saying that we brought these concerns to you in January and it's March and we're not gonna meet again until May.
Great, I will work on it. You can be disappointed. You can say like, Commissioner, I'm disappointed. I had hoped that you'd have those answers for me now, but I don't have
I'm
them.
gravely disappointed
Great.
because that does not do service to the RSA 193A families in the state of New Hampshire.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that, and I don't know that you're wrong.
So I'm
You know,
gonna
so what I mean?
put that as an item for our next meeting, which may be in May or it may be in April.
What is the?
The
She
question
just
about
needs to
the
clarify in the
FAATC
double
dipping,
dippers.
whether it's allowed by statute.
Yeah.
Did you find it?
It's in 77.
Not if you don't like it.
It's not my book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can get that information, but this is not, quite frankly, this is not the forum to try and figure out, this is probably the problem that you had in September. If
Here's everybody
these
trying to-
technical
We're
questions
all
come
trying to
up,
Figure it out.
but I mean, as a board, right, these technical questions come up and say like, we're gonna go back and take a look at that and get an answer and come back, as opposed to trying to muddle through it with speculation. That's an inefficient and not really a great way to do that, so.
So I think I move on to our business for the meeting, member reports.
So I'm gonna dismiss myself then, I'm out.
Okay, thank you for joining.
You all can
Thank you
continue.
for- Yes, thank you for coming.
Yeah, and again, I'm happy to come again. I'm happy to try and get an answer for you, Michelle. I'm sorry that I let you down and did not deliver for you what you wanted. But we will get a good answer, and what we want is a good answer, not a speculating answer. So that we can
Oh.
do that.
Okay.
Do you have something else you need from me?
Interjection here.
Not from you.
Marcus, Jill will be leaving. Is there any protocol that she needs to do?
I don't have anything to report for non-public school advisory council. Because
Okay.
our last meeting was canceled because Tim Carney is moving to a different position. So I don't have anything to share from the last meeting.
Thank you very much.
So
Right.
thank you for what
Thank
you
you.
all, everybody in here is doing for their children. I
Mhm.
appreciate the effort and the investment that you're making in your kids, and as a, so I still claim that I get to call myself a homeschooler, because my mom is, or my mom, my wife is the math tutor for my grandchildren. So do I still qualify?
Sure.
Right? No.
Homeschooler emeritus.
Who are being home educated. There we go.
Emeritus.
Okay, I'm emeritus. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just want to back up for a minute. I forgot to get a second on the motion for the changing the minutes from last month. So I just need someone to second.
I'll
Can you
second.
read what you?
Yeah.
I didn't think
Change
you
it
got
to, I
it
think
first.
that
I
would-
asked for it. People started voting,
Oh,
but I'll move
You
and
first did.
somebody else can
Yes.
second.
Okay, so I think before we can vote on it, though, we have to read what she's writing.
No, this is from last meeting.
This is
Earlier.
about
She said the
amending the
vote.
minutes.
Nobody
Right.
actually,
But we didn't vote on what she's amending it to. That's what I mean. We haven't
Oh.
read what she's amending it to.
I thought
Okay.
you said at the time what the,
so what has to be amended here?
Yes, so on page 2,
Yeah,
the top line begins with it was.
Yep,
It reads, it was agreed that the letter be sent immediately with polling from the home education organizations to be gathered prior to the next meeting. Michelle, Robacher suggested that it be clarified to read, it was agreed that the letter be sent immediately with polling from each member organization, polling their own organization.
Thank you.
that's fine. So Marcus, you wanna
So-
make,
So moved that she's moved to amend the minutes to that, and we need a second for that. and then
Yeah.
we'll-
So Marcus, first, he motioned that, I just need
yep,
to
and I will
document
second,
a second.
yep, I will
Okay.
second the change to,
Great. And,
Yeah.
just to be clear, online, we don't have any other participants.
Oh.
Bill was the only other one, right?
Right.
Because I see that there's. Okay, just want to make sure that we don't have any other. So, sorry to interrupt.
no,
So we could voice vote, everybody's present
mhm,
here, all in
Okay, that's
favor?
awesome.
aye,
Aye.
Aye,
yeah,
opposed? Carries. All right, member reports, we received our non-public school report, legislative report.
Well, we've had a lot of education bills and many of them are dealing with the EFAs. So which I have to deal with, I'll listen to the testimony and then the committee will vote which way they're going, so. We have not, as far as I know, we have not had any particular request of bill on home educators specifically, so there's nothing there. And the rest of the bills have to do with the funding of the public schools.
yeah. I don't think there are any bills. Right now.
None that I'm aware of.
Yeah, not like, last year we had a couple that impacted home education.
Yeah, I've been striking, RSA's from the list as people mentioned,
Yeah.
irrelevant.
I do get a lot of complaints from people wanting the kids to go to public school and they don't like homeschooling, period. Home education.
People
They are
complaining
very
about their
concerned
own
about the
children.
quality of the education those kids are getting.
People are complaining about the quality of education they're giving to their own
I'm
kids.
just telling you.
Senator, that doesn't make any sense in this committee.
I think we know what she means, you know,
So
I think we know what she
I'm
means.
No, no, this is is this the issue that you brought up the last meeting where someone,
No, I haven't heard anything from her.
Oh, what
So
does it matter to
I
us?
told her.
We're saying similar
field
issues of
conversations,
people trying
and,
to
I
report
told
other
that to
families.
her, and I have not, she has not been in touch with me since then. So I'm hoping that she found the right outlet to deal with it, so.
But Senator, I'm trying to understand your comment that you're saying that parents are coming to you complaining about the
No,
fact
no,
that they're
no,
home
no, no,
educating.
no, I'm not saying the parents.
Then that comment was very
I-
misplaced in this
No,
committee.
I talked to teachers, superintendents, people who are voting on things, and generally they do not like home educators.
Well, that's no
Because-
mistake. We've heard that from.
I'm just telling you.
No, she's informing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, we understand, this is, you know, this is not something that is, this is not something that is answered.
Right.
You know, in a rational, legalistic way, you know, we have work to do to, you know, continue to advocate for homeschooling in the public arena, right? And so certain people probably, you know, people involved in public education are typically going to always oppose, you know, what they see as a competition. The public.
I
in
don't
general,
believe that actually, though.
You know, well, you know.
I think we've come a long way
I would
since
agree.
We
the
certainly have,
mid-90s.
Certainly,
But
When
there's
this-
still,
yeah.
there's still a sizable anti-home education.
I think the data of kids achieving on the college level and finding out that they were homeschooled, that kind of data would be fantastic.
well, and this is
Great
why,
data.
you know, everything comes back to EFAs. This is why the distinction with EFAs is so important. Because that will be eroded as you make homeschooling is no longer a self-selecting group of highly conscientious people with, sufficient resources and leisure time to educate their children above and beyond their other responsibilities. Start to subsidize it as it starts to be introduced to educate your children at home. That's not going to attract the same population of people that have created the record of academic success that homeschooling's enjoyed in the past. And while I think it's a matter of principle that people should be free to educate their own children, for much of the public, it is a practical argument. And the fact that we're able to point to the successes of home educated children in college and career and life outcomes is very important.
Yeah, but I think it's important to publicize the success.
It is important to publicize their success, and it's important to
know about it.
And it's important to publicize that ever-present distinction.
Right.
But Senator, even to the report that we just received from the commissioner, home education reporting to the DOE was up by 6%. So it's not a problem with parents not being happy
Absolutely.
about home education. It's a public perception, and that is going to exist for anybody not choosing the public school.
Well, just look at, if you talk about school choice, there are different ways of getting educated. And people don't like that. A lot of them feel they should go to public school. That's the only choice. That's the only choice.
But we're a parental rights state, so
Yeah.
thankfully
Yes.
we have that.
We do. And you have a right to educate your child. So.
I'm sorry. And I would ask whether the people who are complaining, who you're describing as complaining, understand the difference between 193A and 194F.
I don't think
Or
that's an
whether they're
issue for them
conflating
at
them.
all.
No. They
I
don't
don't
like to
think
see
that
children at
whether
home
you're
during the day.
193A or 194. They are concerned that a kid not going to public school, how do we know that that child is being educated?
So
There's nothing that tells us. That's the concern. I'm not concerned about it. I'm just telling you some of the perception out there.
So Senator, can I suggest that with your position that you advocate then that exact point
I
To those
advocate as much
people.
as I can.
to say
Right.
home education is a valid avenue in the state of New Hampshire to satisfy
That's
compulsory
what you
ed.
see then.
And it's the parent's responsibility to do it. Just
Then the data
continue
will
to
be very
affirm that.
helpful. Data will be very helpful about this is success
Where would the data come from though?
from you.
So
You have a couple of children. They
I
go,
have 5.
okay, 5 children, that's fine. Some people have more than that. They're educated at home. They continue, they have careers, they go to school, they get their masters, their baccalaureate, PhDs. If that was available to the
So
public.
I think there
wow, look
there
at
is
that.
available information
Yeah.
to that effect. It seems like it might be a useful thing to do. To, for us or for our organizations to compile information, especially information that's relevant in New Hampshire. I know there's lots of, very broad national stats.
Mhm.
If there are statistics available in New Hampshire, we can provide, just like you can give a legislator a voting guide, you could give a legislator a form letter, or some copy, some references, some things that they could use in responding to those inquiries. And I think that, to the extent that legislators who are on our side would be willing to use those materials, that would be, I think, helpful to the community. I don't know the capacities of different organizations and who might want to do that. But certainly, that would be a useful thing to do. It's a lot to ask Ruth to sort of off the top of her head, respond to somebody's, email and say, well, here as an expert on home education outcomes, let me tell you why you're wrong.
Oh, no, that's not what I was suggesting. Just that she would. When someone comes to her complaining, well, I don't like that that parents are pulling their kids from the public school so that they can home educate them. Her position in the center is to say, well, I'm here to support the parental rights of all families in the state of New Hampshire, and that's their right. And leave the conversation there.
I say, school choice, kids are not cookie cutter things, they all have different needs, they learn different ways. And I support, whichever way they want to teach. They're
Yeah.
up to the.
I think the answer you're
Margaret
saying
has
she
a
should
lot of
give.
good stuff to say about educating.
I think the answer you're saying she should give is the answer I want a policeman to give, right? If somebody says, this child's being abused, I haven't seen them get on the school bus in a whole week, there's something wrong. Like, that's the answer a policeman should give. But a legislator, when somebody contacts a legislator, what they're saying is not, is this according to the law? They're saying, what should the law be, right? And so I think what you need to provide the legislator is the information, the arguments for why it is allowed under law for people to homeschool. Not the fact that not the fact that the law accommodates it.
Ask Margaret. She has a lot of experience with home education.
My turn to talk.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'm Margaret Dry and I wanted to introduce myself. It's interesting to be here because my husband was on the first HEAC and spent the first 13 years of its existence writing and helping to write ED 315. While I was home, giving him stuff to write about. Which turned out to be 30 years of home education for 9 kids, all the way through, and even one who did college online at home. So I have 9 great success stories about home education, and I am a fervent promoter of home education, and I'm also on the education committee. And I'm on the education policy committee now that it's divided. And all those things that the commissioner was talking about, standing up for or fighting, depending on the bill, all the time.
Excellent. Thank you.
Can you give an update on any of the legislation? Maybe 738, or just a status to get it.
Okay, I gotta tell you that my brain is like.
738
fried
is criminal
from
background
yesterday.
checks. You wrote the ITL.
About the,
The- They wanted to get criminal background checks
Oh,
on,
gosh.
on.
that's my pet peeve, okay, yeah. Same bill as last year, exact same thing, you can't do it, you can't do it, I can't do it on you, you can't do it on me. We're not public institutions, we can't get it, it's absolutely the definitive example of inexpedient to legislate, it can't be done. And so that's where, and it's going. Yeah, it's going down.
The House voted on it.
It was on consent calendar, I think, so it's
Okay.
gone. Yeah.
Okay, so it's gone.
Yeah.
And there was another one that was kindergarten literacy, and it actually involved some homeschooling language, home education language. It's HB 671.
Okay, is that the program that has kind of like you can do it 20 minutes a day?
Readiness program.
Yeah, it was
for
something
kindergarten,
that, this
preschool.
was more like enabling legislation, and it was just to allow people to take advantage of it if they wanted to. We heard good things about the program, it was nothing like, there's no regulations, no requirements or anything from it, it was just opening a door to letting that happen, if people wanted to take advantage of it.
We've been basket come forward to us.
Correct.
Okay. Crossover is March 27th. So that's when all the House bills come over to the Senate, all the ones that pass come over to the Senate, all the Senate bills go over to the House. So.
Does anybody, any of the associations have reports they wish to make?
Well, I'm actually feeling that for NHSAA, at the next statewide meeting, I want to talk a little bit about the public homeschool versus the traditional unfunded home education, so that they understand that, because if the public doesn't understand it and other people don't understand it, maybe in the I don't know, then we want to make sure that schools and administrators and folks doing that work understand those differences too, so that it's not all of a sudden lumped together, because that's all home education. They have they have their own set of regulation and rules, and I think just a refresher on that. I like to do that with them regularly and reminding them that children who are home educated certainly come to school and join activities, and I know that still happens because I'll get a call from a school district or Mark will at NHSAA. And we just, is this okay to do? So it's even that, like, it's been around a long time, but people don't always know. So I think this conversation today made me think I should be doing something with that. I'm gonna play around with some visuals too. I just think it would be helpful for people to see it. And with words.
I think Brenda State Home Educators has some excellent.
Yeah, if somebody
charts.
wants to send that to me, that would be great. Yep, I would love that.
Is
Because,
that,
yeah,
is that something that's currently a mechanism when families apply for equal access, that they're being now distinguished as 193A or 194F?
no, I don't think that the schools have any idea what's going on with any of this stuff,
Because
honestly.
looking at
the
the Children's
communication
Scholarship Fund,
Right.
what the little information there was from the 23-24 year, there are a couple of SAUs listed as receiving funds, but is that all of the SAUs that received funds from Children's Scholarship Fund? I don't know.
I have no idea. That's actually brand new news to me, so I'll actually look
Yeah,
into that as well. I think, I don't think they really understand this stuff at all.
Sorry.
Wow, that was fast.
Yeah,
So we are down to about a
Yeah.
half
I just
hour.
wanted to make one comment. I have nothing to bring to the table from the New Hampshire Homeschooling Coalition. But in prior conversation, we were talking about complaints by teachers, administrators regarding people who are homeschooling.
Mhm.
I have been home educating for a long time, and I know what it means to have a child stopped in the street because they're not on the school bus or whatever. So I understand your point,
Mhm.
but I think from what I'm hearing from both of you, I think, and the interactions I've had with people in schools.
Yeah.
They really don't understand.
no, they're not trying to
And
give you a hard
in the
time.
news, when you
Yeah.
read the news, it's all conflated.
Yes.
So, I understand some discrimination or negative feeling, just simply because your children are not in the school, they're not part of our group, they're doing something else, they're other. But I think there's an additional layer of homeschoolers are taking funding from the public schools. And therefore, makes public school administrators and others in the public schools feel even more negative and upset. So I think your effort to reduce that confusion, and.
Because it's
efforts
not
by
home
others-
education,
Right,
right?
It's all lumped together.
That's
It's
why I
what
want to
we're
really
talking
be
about
really
for
clear
years.
about differentiating.
So
right.
I think, it's been brought up now, by the commissioner and, I think, and I'm going to make an item for our next meeting that I'd like us to settle. I'd like us to officially adopt terminology. And then, from that point forward, I think we should ask, Department of Education and anybody else we have. influence on
Legislature,
to-
everyone to use the language.
To
Yeah.
harmonize our terminology. You don't have to use mine, but have some terminology. We're never probably going to be able to fully make the distinction in the public mind, because people who are opposed to
Yeah.
school choice are making that conflation
Right.
deliberately.
Right,
And also, people who are in favor of school choice are making that conflation deliberately.
Mhm.
They're using our good,
Yeah.
our track record of success as
Yeah.
home educators as justification for taking a whole different body of students, and putting them in home-based public education or whatever we want to call it. So as a tiny minority here, we're probably never going to be able to force the issue, but we could at least adopt some consistent terminology and use what
Clarity.
influence we
Just
have
make it
to see that
clear
that's
the
used wherever.
difference.
So I'm gonna make that an item for our next meeting to discuss. Everybody's welcome to, brainstorm in the meantime about what you think that should be. Also, we'll have the question about, hopefully we'll get an answer about whether the law allows the EFA, ETC double dipping. And this question of legislator support materials, I would like, to the extent that you have. It's like, it's how you do lobbying, right? You write the model bill you want to see passed, or you create the information packet that contains all of your all of your bias data and you make sure that everybody sees it, right? So I think that that's definitely something we should consider so that our legislators, have something to respond with that's not, well, look at the law. Yeah, everybody knows the law allows homeschooling and but they don't necessarily understand that homeschooling is highly successful and effective, in a pragmatic sense. And so those are the three items I'm gonna want to discuss in our next meeting. And hopefully we all can prepare for that.
Can I just give one quick
Yeah.
update? Frank seemed to give the impression that I was representing public schools. Just to clarify, a non-co-op, non-public school group, homeschooling family. But I'm a career or I work within public schools. I see that as a plus on the committee. If anybody has concerns about that, I really encourage you to send me a note or have a conversation with me. So just to clarify, I'm here representing home education, but my day job, my wife does the home education 99% of the time. I work in the public schools.
Have you started with your grandchildren?
Sarah is, I'm not, my daughter,
Sarah,
yeah,
Sarah,
yes,
okay.
she's begun home educating, yes.
Mike, would you remind us of your role in the public? school?
Oh, sure, I'm assistant superintendent in Claremont, in Unity.
And I've worked side by side with you, and I feel that the whole time that we've been on this council together, he has done nothing but represent home education, so I'm all for that.
I didn't say that for support, I just.
I know,
wanna clarify.
you just want everybody to know, right,
Yeah,
because we're
right.
representing, we're really focused on educating and supporting the public side of education and understanding the importance of home education and the rights of parents to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So we have updates from Granite State.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna forward those in email afterwards, because we're running
Yeah.
short on time. Anybody else have any member reports?
I just had one issue this month that came up, a member or a home educator asked about SATs. And Ally was nice enough to help me out with this one. If you go on the online portal, the College Board portal, you'll find that in New Hampshire, there aren't any offerings or virtually no offerings for the SAT in the spring. And we had a high school home educator who wanted to get in on that test. Well, it turns out that the New Hampshire Department of Education offers or forces all of the juniors to take the test in April. During the month of April, every high school does that. And home educators are entitled to go in and take that test.
yes,
On
yes.
that day. It is with essay.
Yep.
But it is an option.
yes, and
Yes.
schools know that, so
And schools should know
they,
that.
no, they
But
know
this
that.
person, the child, the student, high
Yeah.
schooler, called the school said no.
So that's really
And
helpful.
so they came back
So
to
I'll
me
remind them,
and.
yeah,
um,
because we have a lot of kids come in and do SAS testing in the elementary.
Yeah, I've
middle,
never
and
had a
high-
problem myself with my children who've already passed through that system.
It could also be the unbelievable turnover in
Right.
Could be,
schools
yeah.
and, new administrators who may not know all this. So it's note to self, like this would be good as part of summer training for whether it's a new principal, new assistant principal, superintendents, that group, like having a whole little section on this stuff, like, right?
Yeah.
The
But
dual-
also,
yeah.
I don't,
Mhm.
if you contact College Board or ETS, I don't know if ETS is still doing administration, but they train their administrators separately, so. You might contact them and tell them that their test administration staff needs to understand that, if you're administering at a school. That you may have homeschooling students join, as part of that administration.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be, in most cases in a high school, that's gonna be the same person who's handling their signups and things for their.
Right, but the call would actually come into the office, so the principals or the superintendent would get the call about, can my kid come to the school? So that's why we want to make sure they know that.
Sure.
And just one other thing, this is about the time of year that, the year-end report, becomes a discussion. Because we only have one meeting, I believe, before that report needs to be presented to the Department of Education. So I'm just bringing out because
Mhm.
of timing and the fact that you may or may not.
What
Realize.
does our year end, I did not realize, what does our year end report consist of?
Well, it's written into statute, so
It's a report to the commissioner.
yeah, it's a report to the Department of Education, right?
Yeah, we have examples.
Every
of
year,
that
there are plenty of.
From the other
examples of it
years,
in the
right?
minutes.
Yeah, you can look at
You
them
can
in the
pull
older
up the
minutes.
years
Yep.
prior, but it's basically you go through the minutes, you look at all the highlights and you, you document them and then present a report. And we typically look at the report ahead of time and approve it or suggest amendments.
Okay.
Do we want to meet in April since we really got a lot of new members starting in January? Maybe
So we
April
have,
and
we have a
May?
question in our new business, section.
Yeah,
About,
Yeah.
making the meetings monthly. I don't know if that seems to like a great idea in general, but it does seem like we could certainly stand to have a meeting in April.
Well, we could just vote each time when we think we need to
I
meet. the
think that's
following month.
great, because making us meet every month, maybe not. But over this last several years, we've met sometimes every
Extra
single
months.
month to get something done.
Okay,
Especially if we wanted to work with the legislature on cleaning up, that was when we were cleaning up the law.
again, we're running short of time,
Yep.
so let's just
Yeah.
knock that out now. Do I have a motion to meet in April second?
I'll make a
Friday.
motion to meet
Second.
in
Second.
April. Yeah,
Okay. All in
Yep.
favor?
The 11th.
That'd be the 11th.
Sorry, who gave the motion?
Heather?
I did.
Heather? And then second was Michelle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All in
Any
favor?
voice? Yeah.
Aye.
I
Opposed?
just want to check that date.
Ayes have it. The other question in new business is, make meeting recordings and minutes available on the website within 5 days of the meeting date. Without 91A disclosure required.
So I noticed that best practices aren't on the meeting agenda. We had started them, or you had started them, I was not here in January.
We
And
voted,
I think 3 of them got reviewed, but several didn't.
we voted as a block on the first 3,
We did.
Okay.
but the recording was not addressed. Only the public comment section actually had discussion.
So that, I thought that I included that. in the agenda this time.
Yes, let's do that.
So what was the question that was left
It
over
would be
from?
healthy. I think that's an important.
So I was just going to ask, is it
I
in the
don't
best
think people
practices,
think
should
badly
we
about it.
review that? Or
Um,
do we want to amend the best practices?
are we unhappy with our current practices?
Well, that question, of that suggestion would imply that we are. Right? If
So I was
the
thinking that
procedure is not in
this was
there,
a new concern, was my thought, that you previously, we would adopt the minutes of the following meeting, and so the minutes and the recording would only become available.
After the second
following
meeting,
The
right?
draft is supposed to be available immediately. It's delineated as a draft on the DOE's website. It says in statute that we would have it released within 5 business days for the minutes. The request that I made was to have the recording also available within 5 business days, so that we can be that effective conduit between the families that we represent and the committee.
How to read all this.
Can I make a suggestion that we talk about this, at the April meeting, like make this a topic?
Unfortunately, that's gonna require that a 91A request is filed for this meeting to become public, because they are no longer made public by the DOE. They were previously released separately to Granite State Home Educators, and they would post them on their blog. That practice was discontinued before our last meeting. I had to personally file a 91A request to receive a copy of the meeting from the last meeting.
I believe that every member of this committee automatically has the right to that copy of the video.
Well, I
I was
didn't
told-
receive it, so if it's automatic, we have a right to it, it should have been sent to us, and then we personally have the ability to disseminate it, but that wasn't the case.
And I don't think.
Kim was sending everyone to the right to know people. when he was getting requests, when I spoke with you, because you needed to make the minutes, I wasn't aware of any changes, which is the reason you were sent it. I feel like there was a change. I don't know what that was.
Yeah, the change was,
I believe
understand.
it, yeah, I believe at one time, because it's just started as secretary a few months ago, that I got a message from Tim that said that you, as a member, have a right to this without filing a right to know.
Yeah. Yes, and I
as the
don't have that
prior,
same information as
as
a
the
member.
prior secretary, I had also received the video from him on occasion, because I was coming in remote.
So are we just supposed to send it to the secretary? That's what
Just
I don't.
this, that's what the practice has been.
Yeah.
So I,
That's why my motion is to make it available publicly on the DOE website, so this confusion is no longer present. Because I, as a member of HEAC, did not know that I had access to the video, and I was not given access to the video until after I filed a 91A.
My impression is that once you file a request, then you can't get it directly. It has to go through that process. Is that true?
well, if it's made public on the website, then the entire question is obviated. I think it's good practice. Whether or not we want to have a discussion of other best practices at the next meeting, I still think we can vote on this one now,
Mhm.
and personally I'd be in favor of it.
And is that timing in terms of, I think it was last meeting, we had a technical problem.
Yes.
It wasn't downloaded to the cloud. No.
Right. So is 5 days practical, from an administrative point of view?
Yeah.
13.
Yeah, that should be.
Move to adopt the 5-day rule for video.
Second.
Favor,
Aye.
Aye.
opposed?
I was.
So, as far as if anybody feels that there are best practices or administrative rules that we should consider, start from blank slate, just send them an email, before the next meeting, and I'll include them. Rather than keep running tally.
I'm sorry, are you saying we won't review all the best practices next meeting?
I don't intend to do that, no. Is there, do you think
I just thought we were.
do you think
going
it's
to
important to
but,
do that?
Or
Or is it just because the question came up about whether we adopted all the ones that were suggested at the last?
I have not reviewed them recently, so I was comfortable with them when we agreed to them the last time, so. But I haven't looked at them.
Does somebody have, obviously I've only been here a couple months, does somebody have a manifest of every rule that's been adopted by this council? Is that
It's a
available
list
somewhere?
of, it's not long.
This is it, for best practices, the last they were rewritten or that I am aware of is September of 2023. So if you add the video, then you must amend. I would assume you would want to amend the best practice section that applies to that,
Mhm.
Which would be 8.
So I wonder, even as in terms of new members being informed of the best practices, if it would be worth just looking at them at the next meeting. And then we have to vote to amend it to add this new, is that correct? I'm not trying to overcomplicate it. I'm just trying to get it done.
Want to make sure
logically
it's
and
done
make sure
properly.
we're all on the same board. Same.
Yeah, so why don't, I think it would be helpful to just do
make
it.
this meeting recording available within 5 days, and then we can vote on the aspect of it. at the
No,
next meeting.
I think we can adopt a permanent rule, regardless of whether a document from 2023 matches that rule or not, and we can move forward that way. If we want to review the best practices, we want to author a new best practices document, that's great.
Yeah,
But I don't think that we're constrained now in our ability to adopt a permanent rule and hopefully uncomplicate our lives in the future.
I agree with you. I think it would be helpful just to look at them again. See, yes, no, yes, oh, we want to add these two, whatever. I think it'd be worth taking 20 minutes. And so is there a way, do we have it here? So could that be sent out to us? Because I think to cut it down on the time, so there's not like an hour of discussion. Have people, like you just said, if you have a concern with something, send it to you beforehand, or you have a new one.
Right.
And then we come, look at that, and then we clean it up, because I would agree, we want it to match if there's a written document that we have. So we can clean that up then, but it doesn't mean we can't change it now. We're good.
Yeah, if we find that some measure has been adopted since that document was offered
Yeah.
that conflicts with it, then it's
Yeah.
already, it's just out of date. And so it's
Right.
not about adopting a new rule, it's about just
Yeah,
updating the
yeah.
documentation.
Mr. Chair,
What's that?
I'm just almost done, but we haven't had our public comments.
Yeah.
Don't you wanna have?
Well, I'm trying to get through, but yes, let's, I think we've already addressed the continuing business item in that, we were looking for, some prevalence polling and specific recommendations about the class wallet site, so I'm just going to, continue that to the next meeting.
Mhm.
We've also had our discussion of highlights of rulemaking legislation. And so I think we are ready to move on to public comments. Oh, we have 10 minutes, here's
Yeah.
the sign up.
Plenty of pens. I can't believe Yeah, I actually, I could have done that. I like paper.
Um. Most of the letters are moved. Most of the letters address the resignation of Lindsay Patterson, which has occurred. So, yeah, I would say that we can, as we do with the minutes, review these
Mhm.
silently, and then if there's something that
I
we
read
want to
them
comment
before.
on, and then we'll vote to adopt them into the record.
Well, I read them as they came in, so,
Yeah, same here.
yeah. Did everybody do that? Then
Yes.
can we just make a move to add them into our record?
We move to add them to the record.
I
There's a
think
second.
they are already.
Yeah, they're in
Are
there.
they?
Yeah, they were in our
Because they're part of your
packet.
agenda.
They're in
Okay,
our packet,
great.
so we're all good.
So yeah, I don't recall any issues
No,
from these that have not been addressed in the
No.
conversation today or in, the events that have transpired.
No.
So, in-person comments, Jennifer Marker.
Guys, I'm Jennifer Marker, New Durham. I was gonna talk about, Ms. Patterson's resignation, but since she's done that, I just wanna take a minute to say, I did not homeschool in New Durham before, the EFA, but or in New Hampshire, but New Hampshire is my 5th state to home educate in. And I know that there's a few people in here that maybe like haven't home educated, and I just wanna say that, when you meet the new neighbors and they say like, oh, like we have this great public school, and you're like, oh, I home educate, they're like, oh, and you're like, well, my decision to home educate does not reflect on your decision to send your kids to public
Right.
school. But there is definitely like a little bit of a tension there. And you're just automatically, fighting all of these opinions that people have in their mind. And as the senator brought up, people are asking questions. Well, how do we know that you're learning, even though the local high school is underperforming? And even though over 50% of the people that graduate from my local high school have to take remedial math in college, they're worried about my kid learning at school or at home. And we are fighting that all the time. And now with EFA, we are constantly butting up against each other. And all of these nuances and the differences, because essentially we are doing the same thing at home, right? That our days look the same. Maybe we go to co-op together, or we're at the library together, but we are governed by different laws. And I expect with universal EFAs that probably is going to change as well. And, the commissioner said, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Well, the elephant in the room is that with universal EFA, like we have a huge target on our back, RSA 193A families. The community is the public community that is against universal school choice. They don't understand that there are 4 pathways. When they
I
hear
agree.
EFA, they think that EFA is money. EFA is funds. And that people use those funds, like the majority of them, to go to private school and home educate. And they don't want their public money going to religious indoctrination and to things that aren't regulated enough. Like, they don't want that. And so I even see, there's legislatures even creating bills and they're confusing the language because they don't understand the language. And people in the community are confusing it because they don't understand. People in our own home education community are confusing it because they don't understand it. So, I mean, I know that like, he thinks I'm like creating drama, but like, I just want you to know, I apologize. I'm not trying to create drama, but then when you come to the table and there's only a few seats at the table, and one of those few seats at the table is given to somebody who it just feels like is advocating for the people that you're just constantly bumping against, it's like, no, let's get this one seat to a person who's gonna advocate for us, because there's only a few people out there advocating for us. So it's not to create drama, it's really just, you know, to get that representation that we deserve and that is written in the statute. So I appreciate all of your time, volunteering, and I just wanted to say that, so thank you.
Thank you. Kate Abbott.
Hi, I'm Kate Abbott. I'm from Portsmouth and I've sent one child through graduation, home education, and then my little one is 11. I just want to let you know that I am so encouraged by listening to today's meeting, especially Mrs. Barker, about what you were saying about bringing back the difference in language. A huge concern that I have in my homeschool and for my kids is the conflating between the home ed and the EFAs, in particular, the double dipping, not the stacking of the EFA and the ETC, but the double dipping of equal access and EFAs, because the EFA families have already been given their money, and so the public school system is coming out of the same fund that they're being paid for both. I didn't say that clearly. But I'm concerned that's going to reflect poorly on my family, who goes to, maybe they want to take an art class or whatever, and my child has the availability to do that because of equal access. But the EFA family has taken that, but have been paid twice for it. The public school has gotten their money, and the EFA has gotten their money, but it's paying twice. I'm sorry, I'm not speaking clearly.
No, it's clear.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm very grateful that Commissioner Edelblut just said that the EFAs are public home-based education, because that is going to help clear up a landscape of problem. And since the landscape is changing, I'm thankful that you are all taking into consideration other meetings, because I'm hopeful but fearful as well of what it's going to look like for home educating my child in the next few years because of the school choice. So thank you.
Michelle Lavelle.
Thank you. In the interest of time, and I appreciate you guys all being here, and it's a long afternoon already. The concerns I want to bring forward are the conflation of the EFA and independent home ed is extreme, even within our community, and GSHE is often considered the bad guys for just making that separation super clear by either referring to it by statute, using the word terminate when you end a program to switch. That's in statute. It's not me trying to pick arguments. It's the language in law. We do have a Venn diagram that tries to make it really easy. We actually worked with a number of people to develop that, including Tim Carney at the DOE.
Yeah.
We have an image of 4 pathways. We have this all over our website. We've blogged about it for 4 years. So the sort of clear purpose and focus that you're doing here on HEAC is what we've been trying to do for 4 years, and we are truly labeled the bad guys. In fact, there's a reporter who's been interviewing people who wants to talk about on Facebook of us being meanies, because we have everybody in our Facebook group. We have over 5,000 people in a single group, and all are welcome. VLAX people, people who are looking to move here, veteran homeschoolers whose children are grown but still love the community, EFA families, full-time VLAX families, because they want to plug into the social opportunities. We welcome everybody, and yet we're still the bad guys here, folks. So just keeping the language clear is all we've ever wanted.
Mm.
We just want to be clear, even if the kids' experiences are similar, the parental responsibilities are different. And that difference in statute is the only thing that has kept independent homeschoolers safe from over 30 hostile bills. This background check bill, we were also called bad guys because we made it clear, we aren't even taking your money, folks. Yes, some of these legislators would come after us no matter what. We are not indifferent to that. But the language of that bill said, you know, education tax credit families who are independent homeschool families. And yes, it's intended to go for the EFA providers. But by pointing that out, we're called haters. So folks, we just want to make sure that the independent home education community, not as an island, but is its own thing and recognized and respected for what it is. And that's all we've ever wanted. So I applaud what the new refocus, that rededication to the community here, and thank you.
Thank you, thanks. Amanda Weeder.
Hello, my name is Amanda Whedon, and I'm in leadership in Granite State Home Educators and Christian Home Educators of New Hampshire and Southern Maine. So I'm a home education advocate in the state, and I go all over because I love people. And I just have been really excited about the uptick in young families who are interested in home education. So I do in-person info sessions, and the last one I had last week had 17 parents. And usually I'll drive a long way and it's only 2, but so it was very exciting. And so we've seen an uptick, and that's a very, very good thing. I just wanted to say thanks to New Hampshire Homeschooling Coalition. I've been at 2 libraries recently, and they have an amazing spiral resource that is a thick packet. And both libraries have asked me, can you possibly give us an update on this? Because it's from 2015.
I know.
And I tell them, I'm so sorry,
We're working on it.
it's not in print anymore, but I can let them know. But it's an amazing resource that just needs to be updated in terms of the law. Even if you send them an update with a 1 sheet for the law change that was recent, it's a huge packet, and it is taken out all the time at the 2 libraries
That's great.
that I've gone to. So it is very valuable to communities, especially libraries. I did want to address, and again, it's my position always that awkward and tense does not equate to inappropriate. Okay, and so earlier, I really take issue with the commissioner, and I'm sad because I'm using my words. I'm sad that he's not here for me to be able to express my disappointment in person, because I feel that he was inappropriate in the way that he spoke to Michelle. There was some assumptions there about her texting someone and her facial expressions that I thought was inappropriate. And if you're gonna say I'm inappropriate for coming and advocating for the homeschool community using my words, I think you need to, you know, watch your words as well. So I would put that to him. I did want to point out, and again, I take issue with him saying I did not know about any of these issues, because I have sent November 18th, 2024, January 12th, 2025, February 15th, 2025. Those are just the first 3 emails that I sent expressing the concern about having EFA advocates as seats on HEAC. So it really is an issue, okay? The onus is not on us. It's on the commissioner, because he clearly didn't read what I have been sending to him. And these issues were brought up multiple times. And for him to sit here and say that he has not heard this, that's just not true. I think he has heard it. I think he made choices, okay? So I think it's inappropriate because we've been told basically to sit down and shut up. And I think that's inappropriate. We have the right to come and to guard and protect what we have worked so hard for, the rights that we enjoy in the 3rd pathway, and we're going to continue to do that. And again, sometimes that gets awkward and tense. That's not a personal attack. That means we've survived this long, and it's important. It's important to us. And so we're willing to sacrifice and come here and spend our time doing it. So this has been years of advocacy leading up to this point. And that's why, you know, for him to say, you know, it's your job to keep an eye on 193A and to protect it. That's exactly what we're doing, and it's not low-hanging fruit, as he said, to express concerns about where people are coming from foundationally. Because we can't work together and build up home education if we don't share the same foundation. And I don't think that that's inappropriate. So I take issue with his words, saying that we're inappropriate. I absolutely do not think we have. He admitted just now that he has not read, didn't attend meetings, didn't read. I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed. We don't do things just to do things. And he said he didn't watch the videos. I don't understand. Why do you come here and volunteer your precious time, right? You drive all the way here. Why are you doing this? If he's not gonna watch things, if he's not gonna read things, that doesn't make any sense to me. I know y'all busy. We don't do things just to do them. So I want to express my disappointment, using those words, with his behavior and his reactions and his excuses today. I want to thank all of you because this is a thankless job in many ways. And I just want to say thank you. We found out yesterday that Frank is moving on. We don't know where he's going. We wish him the best of luck. Hopefully we can support him, whatever his future endeavors are. But this is a real worry, a real concern that whoever this next placement is doesn't understand home education, doesn't understand our rights and responsibilities and freedoms that we enjoy in the third pathway. That's why we take such a firm stand. And the reporter said that I'm militant, and I take it as a compliment. Thank you, reporter from Concord Monitor, that I am militant in this hedge of protection, because this new commissioner, we don't know who it's going to be. And we don't know if they're familiar with the long, rich, wonderful, sacrificial history of 193A that you all have been a part of. Okay, and so we need to make sure that whoever this is does understand. And I look forward so much and appreciate you so much. I look forward to doing that with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we have, I don't believe any business for a non-public session, so.
Sorry, Marcus, did we address the motion to meet in April?
Oh, we did read that motion.
April 11th, I won't be able to be here, but.
Okay,
yeah.
there will be a meeting. in April.
Or I will be late. I can come, actually. I'll just be a little bit late. I'll be at a different meeting across town.
Motion to adjourn,
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Friday.
second. All in favor,
Aye.
Bye.
opposed,
Only 4 minutes over.
have a good weekend.
Yeah.
Yes.